Yesterday, we looked at an example of a failure of a internal control when there was override with no justification. Well, today I want to explain how you can override and change your internal controls.
The compliance tip of the day. This is the podcast where we bring you daily insights and practical advice on navigating the ever-evolving landscape of compliance requirements. Whether you're a seasoned compliance professional or just starting your journey, my aim in this podcast is to provide you with a bite-sized, actionable tip to help you stay on top of your compliance game. And now I'd like to say a few words about the latest podcast on the Compliance Podcast Network, AI Today in 5 with 5. Thrilled to announce the inaugural episode of my latest podcast series, AI Today in 5. I wanted to do a short, curated set of stories and news stories about AI for the compliance professional and the greater business professional. You can check it out on Megaphone, the Compliance Podcast Network, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple, or wherever great podcasts are listened to. Check out AI Today in 5.
So internal controls monitoring can lead to an improvement of your internal controls. It can also help you if you have to override internal controls with an appropriate business justification. We're going to take a look at this today and see how you can use this going forward. One of my favorite internal controls specialists is Christina Ravello. Christina is a true internal controls expert, having cut her teeth at Walmart Latin America during the pendency of its FCPA investigation. And she really brings a level of sophistication to internal controls that we don't see enough in compliance. So what are some of the basic questions Christina would start with? How often would something be manually approved, i.e. outside internal controls? How often are controls skipped? What are the levels of approval that you have, and what is your documentation? What are the reasons, and are you documenting how often a certain department is requiring an override? While the continual override of internal controls could indicate the company lacks a culture of compliance or that everything is an emergency, it might mean something else. And it might mean that your internal controls need to be evaluated and then recalibrated. The DOJ calls this continuous monitoring of internal controls, leading to continuous improvement. Joe Orangel, my friend who is the co-founder of Visual Risk IQ, calls this continuous controls monitoring. So what did Christina learn while she was at Walmart? Well, at Walmart, and once again, this is while they were under their own FCPA journey, they reviewed internal controls literally on a quarterly basis. They looked at what controls were overridden, what controls were circumvented. Was there a reason for doing so? Did the control actually work in the manner in which it was intended? The key is to have a process for monitoring controls, taking input, and literally from each line of defense. If a control is overridden too often, you might need to change it. If a control is ineffective, you can use that information to craft a new internal control. Internal controls are not static, but they're indeed dynamic. And with proper oversight, you can set up internal controls literally to improve with appropriate documentation. What does that sound like? The Tom Fox maxim: document, document, document. Christina Ravello emphasized that it's not simply identifying the issues, because that actually might look worse if you identify a lot of issues, but the key is fixing them. You are better off if you remediate everything you are identifying. From there, you conduct a root cause analysis as to why there was a failure in a control or a violation of a compliance procedure. But you need to do it in depth, and you need to take effective remediation steps. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Number 1, an internal control override is not necessarily a bad thing if a proper procedure is followed. 2, internal controls are not set in stone. They can be modified or adapted. And 3, the key is to have a process for monitoring your controls and for taking input, literally from each line of defense, the first, second, and third line of defense, taking that information and then using it to modify your internal controls as appropriate. Said, I'm happy to do for you the
compliance profession is if you have a question or a series of questions you would like some compliance tips on, I'm happy to take any requests that you might want, certainly anonymize them, and give you a quick tip, either one quick tip or maybe a week's worth of quick tips. So if you have any tips you want about your compliance program, you can shoot me an email at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. This podcast was created and produced